Hello, everybody. It's Jason Grant, CEO of Integral, Redesigning Humanity. And today I have enormous pleasure of speaking to Julio Alejandro. And that is my best go at pronouncing a name of a Spanish. Is it a Spanish origin or what is the origin, my friend?
I'm Mexican. I was born and raised in
Mexican.
Mexico.
Okay, so one of the names of Mexican origin. So Julio Alejandro, and Julio is a global communications person for Eternity blockchain. And please, Julio, like with everybody else, I don't try to introduce people. I just let them introduce themselves because they know themselves the best. So please tell us who you are and what you're doing these days.
Sure. So I come from a political journalistic background. That's how most of the people know me, and they used to know me until 2014. So I try and I watch analyzing how can you solve humanity's problems? How can you make a world fairer, brighter, with a more prosperous future? And I analyze like different venues. Since I was probably like in high school and in university 10 years ago, I started doing arts. I started doing writing poetry. I started thinking that if I would tell another group of people using poetry and art and literature, that would change their personality. That would change their way to analyze and have a vision about humanity. It didn't work. So then I went into politics. I went into journalism, and I was with a microphone and with a lot of energy trying to change and modify other group of people behavior. As well didn't work, and from 2014 I decided to go full time into social entrepreneurship, specifically blockchain and disruptive technologies. So there's where my career, where I end up in eternity, and being the former CEO and founder of three blockchain companies: Humanitarian Blockchain, Jada Consulting, and Digital Anarchy. That's where I began my path to entrepreneurship, always from an ethical and socially conscious background.
Amazing. One of the things that keeps on being a common thread in all these conversations that I'm having with absolutely marvelous people from around the world, both men and women, in many cases, very, very young people. What age are you at? You're in your 20s?
Well, that's a really good compliment. Thank you very much. I'm gonna remember that when I go to the club at night. But I'm 30 years old. I just turned
Wow.
30 years old.
Well, technically, in my mind, you're going to still qualify as 20s. You're getting away with 29. Um, but yeah, very, very young people, but very holistic thinkers, coming from poetic background for arts, from engineering, but mixed and blended with arts. A lot of people working on themselves, self-improvement, self-understanding, inner standing, spiritual approach, helping humanity, redesigning humanity, as we would say at Integral. Um, tell us what is the purpose of Eternity blockchain, and maybe also why you decided to join.
So I joined Eternity just like 3 weeks, about a month ago. I was part of their in like one of the parts in the initial team, trying to give them publicity, trying to guide them, trying to help them over a year ago. But that was very brief. That was just a couple of weeks. We didn't move forward. And one of the purpose that I find my personality and my behavior aligned with Eternity is that first, they have a moral purpose. They see, and we see, technology as a source of good for human emancipation. We see that there's a lot of violence and poverty and negative issues that are happening across the developing world, in Asia and Latin America, in the Middle East, and that blockchain and ICOs can serve as a path to financial freedom, can help people that have no access to financial credits, to entrepreneurship, to social, to become valuable to societies and market standards and terms. We think that Eternity and blockchain overall can and must have an emancipatory purpose to help people across the developing world.
All right. So tell us then a little bit about your team, and also about what kind of humans this project, this blockchain, is targeted at. Who are the perfect customers of Eternity blockchain?
Sure. So the people that we're targeting at the moment, they're not based on nationalities or genders or specific socioeconomic status. We're targeting usually young, entrepreneurial startups, students that they want to build a product on top of our blockchain instead of another blockchain. And the team that works with us, not exactly sure about the number, don't quote me, but we should be around 70 of them probably. We're based in Liechtenstein. We have the House of Blockchain in Liechtenstein, where we provide kind of like a co-working space, like a physical space for startups to operate, both in Liechtenstein and also in Bulgaria. And about half of our group are developers. We code in Erlang and in Elixir. We should have around 10 developers of Erlang, around 10, 11 of Elixir as well. We should be having around 50 people that do kind of like front end and UI and interconnections and everything for the front end. So we're quite, most of us are quite young. Many of us come from very international backgrounds. Like myself, I'm Mexican. I'm among the very, very few Mexicans living in Europe, based in London. But I like, you know, my background goes a lot working with Muslims and refugees in Europe and in Jordan, in Bahrain, in Turkey, in Greece. So we're trying to get those kind of like very, very young and motivated, very enthusiastic people that really want to create a change in the world. So the purpose needs to be not only the business model and the financial area of it, but an emotional response against like what's happening in the world, and that we need to create a fairer, a brighter, a more sincere, a more ethical world where people do not have access to everything that we have in this Western European world with blockchain. And you know, we think that we can decentralize well, that we can distribute well, that we can do it better, faster, and those are the people that are going to be coming into eternity.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about then the system of how this works. Usually I'll ask people to sort of run me through a little bit of like end-to-end perfect case scenario. You know, let's take one of these people that you just described. How is that going to work through eternity and beyond?
So we have different systems. I think the two most relevant and the ones that I work with is first, it's an ambassador program. People come with us and they say, we want to learn about blockchain. We want to be involved in blockchain. We're looking to invest or to participate in some way. So we provide them a system where they can actually benefit from using this technology. So we give them mentorship and kind of like advices of how can they create international conferences worldwide. So we have 36 conferences happening this year, and anywhere, some like people from Argentina, from Nigeria, from small agricultural areas in China, we ask them to fill an application form. Once they have that application form filled, they would become part of our embassies. They would become our ambassador. That's a community that supports us. So having that community allows us as well to create publicity and awareness exposure to find applications, meaning to find startups that we call decentralized applications, or dApps. That's what we call them in the ecosystem. And those are the group of developers and business-oriented people that want to build a use case, a real solution. For that, we give them two things. One of them, we have Eternity Ventures, where we provide up to 250K investment in terms of like different ideas, different from shares, credit, like different ways that we can help them. We provide them a physical space, the House of Blockchain. It's how it's called in Liechtenstein, and we also give them access to a global network of experts and entrepreneurs. So those are like the two areas where we kind of like bring people that come with us that they reach us through social media, that they physically come with me and say, like, Alejandro, like, I want to be involved in blockchain. I want to understand what is a smart contract. Please explain me. I want to build a state channel. Like, what's the difference between all the blockchains? What's the difference between all the state channels? Like, how do you evaluate if one state channel, or if it's on chain, off chain, if one is better or the other one? We usually bring them into these systems, or at least I try to bring them into the systems. You can be an ambassador if you want to be, if you want to give talks, if you want to learn, if you want to be enthusiastic. But if you want to be more proactive and you actually have a startup and you want to run it on top of a blockchain, public, decentralized, distributed one, we would recommend you to go with Eternity Incubator and Eternity Venture.
Amazing. So, I mean, this has already touched on some of the differentiating factors as to how you're approaching the whole project and development, not just from a systems point of view, but also including people into that system as very integral parts of. I mean, the technology needs to serve people, not the other way around. So, so tell us a little bit then on the innovation side. In what are the key differentiating factors of Eternity blockchain compared to other things such as Ethereum that also runs smart contracts and all these kind of things? How is Eternity blockchain differing from the rest, and why did you really decide to start yet another blockchain?
So that's a broad question, right? I'll try to go on details on it. Why another blockchain?
I mean, it's like give it a little, like maybe some core like bullet points. Really, I'm not trying to start off a whole kind of like debate here as to whether another blockchain is needed or not. But like usually, I've heard like a lot of arguments around. There's a lot of things in the blockchain space that aren't really kind of worked out yet, and everyone's kind of up in the air as to like how is it really going to work out. And I'm not trying to ask you about those kind of unknowns really. I'm just trying to get the core differentiating factors, and then afterwards we can go maybe into a little bit more depth as to like, but what are the core differences with Eternity then?
Sure, no problem. Overall, because we have a very lean architecture. The fact that it's lean, it means that we solve the speed of transaction problem, the scalability problem. And we solve them in three ways. That all of our features are built inside of the architecture, inside of the software, inside of the tools. Second, that we use state channels, meaning as Ethereum goes with scalability issues, we already solved those problems to having hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of transactions per second as we're still on the test net. And third, we differentiate because we're really focused on creating oracles. Oracles will allow you to create prediction markets. And prediction markets would allow you to anticipate what is the real live information that exists in the real world, like in the physical world. Like, is the Jets going to win against the Chicago Bulls? Like, did they won 5-0, for instance? Did Donald Trump won the elections? Is it going to be raining within the next 30 minutes? So all of that's real. Like, is your airplane going to arrive on time at London Heathrow or at New York LaGuardia? All those kind of like live information that is happening as we speak creates a lot of opportunities to business to identify and to measure if someone or something is doable, and a business case and proposition can be done immediate on those nano and micro agreements. So the fact that we specialize first having a very powerful smart contract that is running on state channel, and second that all of our applications of oracles, of predicting the future, of anticipating what would happen within the very next second, it's what differentiates Eternity out of the currently 6 public blockchains that exist. And out of those 6 public blockchains, like none of them is in the test on the mainnet that can build platform apart from Ethereum. So we have like a very strong team. Usually, like a blockchain startup would have around 5, 10 at most, and I'm exaggerating, Developers, we're 36, we're almost 40 developers. We've been growing massively, we've been expanding our outreach to have communities, to have news organizations, to be funded by artists. Like we're giving money to artists or tokens, to artists, to painters, to writers, to people who appreciate literature, so they can expand their ideas. Like this is a social movement. This is one of the problems that I think that many people think about it. Like we're a technology company with definitely many people think of us as kind of like the BMW of blockchain, like the most efficient blockchain, very elegant, very articulate blockchain. But in reality, we're trying to be a social movement that has enough money to give back to the community, to give back to the artists, to give back to the literature, to give back to people that really need, the world's helps, and we're here to help.
Awesome. I think you're doing an amazing job of answering these questions in a way that is absolutely, marvelous and like really world class. And by the way, just for anybody who might be thinking that there's absolutely no script about this, I've recently only come to know Julio via my friend Milos Zorica. And, I'm always interested in speaking to marvelous young 20 somethings. Hey, I'm gonna still stick to that you're 20. He's 29. If anyone tells you he's 30, that's a lie. It's 29. So these super young, smart people. Now, I'm impressed by the fact of what you're saying here. That this seems to be we're now on the topic of products. So the core product. What's the state of the product of Æternity blockchain, and how would you describe what are the products of Æternity blockchain?
One of our biggest, the biggest product that we have is a public blockchain, which is a platform, if you could imagine Microsoft, that would allow you to create different applications. So Microsoft Office allows you to have PowerPoint and Word, like Microsoft Word, and also Excel. So those are applications that are being built on top of Microsoft Office and Microsoft. And we would want to have one decentralized protocol that is called the new internet, and would allow people to create new business that do not exist at this moment. So go back 20 years ago and ask yourself, and someone could ask you, what is the internet? Well, with the internet, you can create an email, but what's an email? On the internet, you can create a browser like Google, but like what's a browser? Well, the internet, you can create social media, and people would say like, what is Facebook? What is Twitter? What is Instagram? What is YouTube? What is Uber? What is sharing economy? What is fintech? So those concepts that do not exist that 20 years ago, and nowadays we all understand what is in there, a market of love. Eventually, blockchain would allow a new digital markets that are going to be focused in creating synchronization between the desire of a person, of an individual, and a market, a company, a startup that is willing to fulfill that desire that someone has at the moment. So it's the new generation of the internet. As we first started with a generation of internet that was based on information, where you simply read, that information was encrypted, and it created electronic commerce. So now people are willing to buy and share things. Now we're getting into the internet of contracts, where you don't need to trust the other person or the other individual, because everything will be done on an automatic and decentralized way, and terms that we cannot understand with precision what it means, but we expect that in few years, this would be the new form of decentralized information, commerce, future entrepreneurship.
So what is the state then of the technology? Because this still comes in my mind under the product thing. Because I recently went to an event, was it last night before last, by Lisk. And Lisk was saying they're heavily in the process of building an SDK for developers, but they weren't really committing as to what time the live live time was going to go. So you mentioned that you're in the testnet phase, but what about the rest of the kind of SDK for developers? Where's that at? What, any kind of timelines, dates, and so on for that?
Yeah, so 2 to 3 months. At the moment, we're what is it? Almost 20th of April, almost in May. Think about that by the end of July or by July, August, we're gonna be live. We're gonna go to the mainnet, becoming the 7th public blockchain or the 8th public blockchain that exists out there. SDKs, we do have them. Developer tools, we have them, and libraries, we do have them as well. Most of them, they're accessible on GitHub within the next few weeks or days. We're going to be like we do external audits to them, to all of them, to verify the quality and the consistency of the technology. And we should be among the very first ones that actually has a product that people can use. So just wait for us 2 to 3 months. Everything will be we in between. We already have hackathons for people that wants to keep testing our community. We received, I cannot tell you what exact, I was not in there, dozens, not sure if hundreds or plenty of hundreds of applications, and at least we have 5 startups that are running with us. And I want to make like the differentiator in here, because there's other companies, I think it's our chain, that they said that they have 500 startups that are running with them. And like that's a little. Ethereum has 480 of them. Neo has 39 of them. We have 5, probably 6 or 7 within the next days. And the difference between us is what is that we test them. That for anyone for use our what we're open source. We're full for everyone, so anyone can use it. But if they want to be a part of our incubator program, if they want to receive tokens as a reduced price, we would judge them. We would think, okay, we do believe that this is honest, legitimate, a good value proposition. This guy's in here, they look like it's a pump and dump scheme. They're a little bit scam. They're a little bit shady. They didn't do KYC AML. So we exclude they can use the technology. Anyone is allowed to use the technology. It's open source. But we focus on this part of people that really have a strong value proposition.
Awesome. So full-on development, and pretty soon ability for developers to mull in and develop live on the public network. So that moves us on to the money aspects of the matter. So we covered purpose, people, systems, innovation, products. Now it's the money. So you mentioned earlier on that you're given 250,000 fund to those who want to build apps, etc. So tell us a little bit about the situation with money regarding Eternity blockchain. Have you done an ICO already? Are you doing an ICO? What's the situation there, and how are you actually funded?
With it, we received up to 300 million with I think a little bit under 10,000 contributors. And we did it in 2 phases. The second part of it, we didn't it was sold within the first 10 days. So it was pretty quick. It was back in April 2017, if I'm not mistaken. And from that money, it creates what is called the market capitalization. We were used 350 for 100 million, depending on the day. We win 1 million, we lose 1 million. That's the way it works. We went up all the way to 800 million on $800 million market capitalization at the beginning of the year, meaning in January. So we're among the top 40 cryptocurrencies, and we really try to focus about the quality of the technology.
So how then tell us a little bit about the economics of this system then, in terms of, let's say that this is for developers that are looking to build dApps. Is it a similar sort of thing around doing an ICO, similar to how Ethereum works, or how does it work?
So we'll be in a phase eventually, cannot tell you if it's going to be 2 months or if it's going to be 6 months, where people might be able to use other kind of like mixed the technologies to create tokens. About the economics specific, I'm going to pass on that because I don't have clarity of how does it work. I don't come from an investment background personally. I come from a humanitarian background, working with the refugees in Calais and trying to save them from deportation. So specifically on the economics part of it, I have to pass.
So, okay, so let me rephrase that question then. It's just a question of are developers able to create their own tokens with their own dApps?
They would need a special system. At the moment, it cannot be done. Eventually, we hope that it can be done.
Okay, and so in terms of then how Eternity blockchain, because one of the unique things about blockchain technology, and this is where I think a lot of people who are like anti-blockchain and think that this is like some stupid alley down the wrong road, like a path down the wrong, direction or whatever. What they don't get quite, it seems, is that like each blockchain comes with its own cryptocurrency, really, and that's a powerful thing, because as soon as people buy into that, whether it's mentally or emotionally or actually, with real money, they have this vested interest. Like, I don't know if anyone's ever bought some shares in a company, even if it's like one share for some company that you don't really so much care about. As soon as you've got a little bit of vested interest, it's a completely different feeling than when you're just I don't know, a customer even. So tell me a little bit about how Eternity blockchain is looking to improve people's lives with regards to the money aspect of it.
How to improve people's life with the economic aspect of it. So what do you mean? Like in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of redistribution of wealth, in terms of
explain what you mean by redistribution of wealth.
It's the redistribution of opportunities, not of wealth itself. There's a large difference between them. So what blockchain does is that it eliminates the jurisdictions. It creates a larger and quicker access that people without background in economics or in technology, such as me, would be able to create and innovate different ideas with a for-profit mentality, that their life would be better and the ecosystem would be better if they produce something within kind of mentality. So it is the opposite of how does the current system works in terms of redistributing wealth according to a government or nation state that tries to take away your money according to taxation. People can agree with it, people can disagree with it. There's a lot of debate if Bitcoin is actually the encrypted area of the Austrian School of Economics, if it is really the emancipation of Friedrich Hayek theories of spontaneous order, use of distributed knowledge, and the centralization of ideas. It is a way that people mention Milton Friedman social market theories, and it has a lot to do with the Chicago School of Economics and Scottish Enlightenment with David Hume and Adam Smith as well.
All right. This is why it's always useful for the blockchain. People who are delving into blockchain don't just need to read about technology and research about technology. They need to research about economics, psychology, sociology, also politics, as well as governance and all these things, because blockchain is blending them all into one fine cocktail and cake that enables humanity to rise into the next phase of existence. So then, in respect to growth, which is the final seventh area that we usually talk about in these conversations, how is Eternity blockchain going to grow? And you, as the person who's spearheading this growth initiative as a global communications person, tell us a little bit how it's going to grow.
It's going to be about markets of adoption. It's going to be about, on the external sense, how many applications and startups can start using our technology because of its quality. It's going to be in markets of adoption, also about how does the community want to build applications and solutions to automatically solve spontaneously without us asking someone. There's a problem, there's a bug, there's a virus, there is something that wasn't done in the correct way, and people would flag those problems. And it is market of adoption in the sense, in the definition of who is a billionaire. And a billionaire is not someone that has 1 billion or $1 trillion, or his company or organization can or should be measured in economic sense, but on how many billions of people can we actually change the world and their lifestyle, their behavior, by them adopting technology. So the growth goes within market adoption. And for that, it is necessary to combine the quality of the technology with a moral and very, very strong ethical purpose of why are we here, and what is the reason for eternity to exist if so many other technologies exist out there. Because we're a movement, we're super motivated. We just had a conversation yesterday, 19th of 19th of April. We had our first international event with the Seasteading Institute. We traveled to Liverland, to Serbia, to we traveled to Liverland, to Serbia. We also went with David Friedman, the son of Milton Friedman. We participated in LibertyCon. We saw people from D10E. Myself, I have different projects with MIT University, most of them related with refugees. And growth is maintaining this sets of ideas of opportunities. I'm based here in WeWork. The director of WeWork was named by Time magazine within the top 100 most influential people, and we want to be in that list as well. But we want to be out of a real solution that we provide to humanity, not because of a pump and dump or even an economic standard, because of the real impact that we provide to people across the developing world. So that is our growth, the market of adoption.
All right, so that's awesome. And now it's just like a freestyle conversation. I wanted to cover, for me, it's really important to cover all the 7 areas, what we talk about as designed company, really. Because really every company, and we run an integral incubator for blockchain startups. And, you know, it's really always a conversation around purpose, people, systems, innovation, products, money, and growth in that order. For a company to really design itself and be able to impact on future of humanity in the best and most creative possible way. So a little bit of a just ad hoc conversation now outside of that kind of more formal structure. I saw that you were recently in like European Parliament, or speaking to somebody from EU about blockchain. Tell us a little bit about that. You know, you seem to be traveling around the world quite a bit, you know, talking about blockchain and eternity blockchain as well. So what do you, how are you handling these conversations? I mean, again, you know, for somebody who's only 29 years of age, you know, you're hanging around in very high, very high echelons of society, you know. So what are you talking to these people about?
I try to explain them the necessity of using technology rather than legislation or economics to change the way that humanity exists. And I give them historical examples about how it is. It's not the world of ideas. It's not even the world of values or ethics. But when the Renaissance existed, it existed because of a change of Gutenberg's printing systems. How we arrived in the 19th century to the Industrial Revolution, it was not because an ideology like Marxism or capitalism or a book that was created in University of Glasgow by Adam Smith. It's actual technology that was implemented. And the fact that we have lifespan until 90 years old, it's not because government urbanization theories, it's because the medical advances in anesthesia, in biology, in research and investigation that existed exactly because of these ideas. And how do people understand, or lack of understanding, what is a credit system? And we criticize banking and the financial institutions, but we don't understand how are those banking institutions regulated by a group of lobbyists and heartless and homeless and evil people that they didn't care the least. They don't have consistency in their thought. That one of their main goal and activity is to create a centralized lot of barriers, a lot of regulations to keep the small guys and the small startups from participating in a real global free market, unregulated, decentralized commercial world that we can create. So it's about providing a lot of like very, very small ideas, people that can actually relate to those examples. And I first start seeing, like, investigating a little bit about what is the other person, what's the gender of that person. So should we talk about feminism? What is the race of that person? If he's African or African American or Indian, you know, like there's a point of conversation that I can start telling him about. Is he Muslim? So I talked to him about like Imam Hussein, and I've given entire talks about Bitcoin and Islam, and its correlation between the Battle of Karbala and Imam Hussein ibn Ali ibn Muhammad. Like how did he become selfless, like Satoshi Nakamoto? How does a history where he sacrificed himself, his blood, his life, and 72 members in the year 680 in the desert of Iraq gave a rise to a new mindset and mentality? And he did it because he believed that the resolution, that saving Islam has a moral purpose. It's not a religion, Islam. It's a legal and ethical mindset. How does that correlate to the use of Bitcoin in new technologies? And how the Sharia law is interpreted? How can we help them? So I work with MIT. It's the third year that they win a project. Second, they give me they asked me to be a speaker. This year I'm going to be a judge, and I go to Bahrain, and like I meet the sheikhs of Saudi Arabia, and I've participated in projects with Queen Rania of Jordan, and I need to explain them on very, very simple, like practical terms, a religious leader, like how and why should they adapt an asset that is not backed by a physical asset, like a physical thing. So in Islam, you need to have, like, it needs a credit, a future lend or loan needs to be backed by something, like, but something that is physical, a beer, a house, cattle, a pork. And they say, okay, if Bitcoin is not backed by anything but encryption and code, why should I believe in it? So I tried to use even religious paradigms and religious Islamic texts to try to explain them why should they use it and adopt it and understand it. So it's a lot about like physical, cultural mentality, like understanding what is the essence, what does he wants to talk about. And if you manage to bridge this gap, you're halfway through. You're halfway through, and we hope that we'll bridge that gap faster.
So, like, as I said earlier on, we've only, like, this is the first time we're really speaking, so we don't really know each other. It's really like a first conversation that we're having. But since the internet is the way it is, and blockchain is more or less like a very collaborative open space, we're basically just having our first conversation live in public. So I need to introduce myself a little bit from my end. I actually am a Muslim from Bosnia, and I came to UK as a refugee in '95. So all these things that you're talking about, I like understand firsthand. And it's also interesting to notice that Dubai, is the city that wants to be the first fully blockchain-enabled city by 2020. It's not London, it's not New York, it's not Shanghai, it's not St. Petersburg, it's Dubai. And so, talk to me a little bit about, where you see, sort of where you can see Eternity blockchain, for example, ending up being sort of the utility that's powering the back ends of what kind of things, with this sort of throughput that you're saying you can manage with up to 100,000 transactions per second, maybe more. Where do you see Eternity blockchain being utilized?
Eternity is responsible for one thing and is not responsible for other thing, meaning the quality and the performance of the technology, it needs to be good. We have developers; those are physical people. The way that this technology would be used across the worlds, it's not something that we can anticipate or even predict. So we need to focus on this side of it. Where what I individually, regardless of eternity, would try to see it is I would focus a lot within the poor and the oppressed and those people. I've been to Bosnia actually like 4 days ago. I was not in Bosnia but in Serbia, and I actually last year I went here, which is the let me give me a second. I'm sure people see it or they actually want to see it, but I went to the Open Fest, right? So this is one that was in Sarajevo, one of my favorite cities. People might be able to see it from here. And,
Yes, yes.
and on October 27th, a free market and entrepreneurship and globalization. And I've been to Montenegro, I've been to Podgorica, I have a lot, and I want to say this publicly as well. Like if they kick me out of the UK, I'm very very likely either going to end up in Dubai or Sarajevo. It's one of my favorite cities, and traveling and understanding Srebrenica, like awful massacre in 1995, and the role of Ratko Mladic. Um, like that is my personal goal. The talk that I gave at the University of Sarajevo, was called blockchain against genocides, meaning the use of disruptive technologies to stop what happened in the 1994, 93 in those countries in the Balkans.
So it's a strange way in which things kind of cross-cut. And for those who are not very keen on reading around various different subject matters and sort of joining the dots, they would never really be able to probably make this sort of correlation. But let me try, and since you mentioned Srebrenica, and I'll cross correlate it to blockchain. Do you know what the word Srebrenica actually, what it means, what the name Srebrenica is from?
I'm Googling at the moment, so I'm
so
but
in
no, I have
Bosnian
no idea.
language, srebro is the word for silver. So Srebrenica was one of the biggest silver mines in Europe. And it's actually geopolitically very important, not because it's a silly little village, that really hasn't got much going there. It's actually one of the biggest silver mines. So the way this cross correlates with blockchain is that genocides and wars usually happen in areas where there is, very high level of natural resources, right, that people are fighting over. So with blockchain, we're creating, as you mentioned, redistribution of wealth. So there is no need for genocide because there is enough for everybody, and everyone's able to access it and mine wealth based on their mental creativity and the progress and creation of the better world, rather than killing people for whatever reason it is. So it's a kind of strange, completely unplanned sort of segue, but it all kind of always ends up kind of connecting together. Tell me another. We're sort of running out of time. So tell me another one thing, maybe anecdote, you know, what's happened to you so far in the process of evangelizing Eternity blockchain. You know, what's kind of one of the most perhaps inspirational things that you can share with everyone that views this?
It would be rather, it would be a goal, a personal motivation, which is to stop deportations from Mexican Americans in the United States. And me as a Mexican, that I have lived in Chicago and in Houston, Texas, temporarily in Canada, and you know, I studied in Paris. I'm quite global myself. I'm very lucky to be in the UK with a visa and no further problems. But I understand that a third of the world, which is Chinese and Indian, do not have access to freedom of movement and unlimited capability as many of us that have a Western passport. And many of those people that live illegally or undocumented in this areas, regions of the world, they don't have opportunity to create a better life. It's very limited. They're always with the fear of someone coming into the door and knocking into them and expulsing them. So organizations like liberal, like, and I say this on a personal level, not on a company's level or anything, but or organizations like Liberland or like the Free State Project or Parallel Polis or the ideas of Team Made back in 1994 is important to stop the violence against people that never committed a violent crime. And this is one of the essence of why people usually come into cryptocurrencies. Usually, and they come into blockchain as a way of saying the world and the system, the way that it operates is so bad that we need to create a change. So don't go into human rights, don't go into a non-for-profit charity, which, you know, they create very limited response, very limited actionability, impact. But with blockchain and this disruptive technologies, its impact, it's endless, its opportunities and its growth. The being part of this movement, it's an honor, it's a joy, it's a tremendously positive and enthusiastically form of waking up in the morning. And my team knows that I work probably sometimes 12 hours, sometimes even 14 hours. It's a Friday night. Juan Guerra is waiting for me in the salsa and startups party in Soho, but he has to wait. He has to wait because we have to give this interview. People have to know about this. The message needs to go out there. And my name is Julio Alejandro, by the way, if you add me up in or follow me in social media. But people need to know about those things. The party and the beer and going out with the girls, all those things can wait. But enabling blockchain as a technology that is going to revolutionize the world, that is the priority. So we're going to keep working for that. And we're looking forward to expand this message to as many hundreds of thousands or millions of people that we can within the next hours, days, weeks, or months, anything. We're going to do it, and we're going to do it great.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julio Alejandro. I'm going to notch you up as my new very good friend. And since you're based in London and I'm also based in London, we got to do a coffee, maybe even go out somewhere one evening. And I'm sure it's going to end up being like talking about blockchain. I don't dance salsa, but hey, maybe that's like a new thing for me to start up. So thank you so much, and wishing you a very good evening tonight. We'll link to everything, a link to Julio's Twitter and everything else. The project's already linked to. Thank you so much. Jason Grant, Integral, Redesigning Humanity. Have a very beautiful weekend, people. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.